On my previous video regarding what happens when we die, I talked a lot about the process of returning from being a human being housing a soul toward being a soul without a body. I mainly talked about the mechanics of it and what the experience might be like within our perspective. But I want to go into some side topics because I think they are hot topics. They're things we care about, they're things we worry about, they're things we are gripped by in the middle of the night, especially when we're contemplating our own well-being or if we lose someone that we love. So let's take a peek at some of that as well. I think that the more you understand the journey in the physical, the more you can let go of some of those worries, the things that do grip you or keep you up at night. So the first thing I want to talk about is, like, when I talk about the energy realm and how the soul lives when we're not in the physical form, if it's that blissful and it's that so filled with optimism and love and freedom and creativity and limitlessness, then, why shouldn't I just return home now instead of however this life might bring us? And I always try to help people to remember this. When you look around and you see the variety of infinite possibilities that there are and the variety of things going on this planet, from being able to look at a little ladybug that has 3 spots to being able to watch a video of a volcano, or to realize that in the 1960s we started to send people to mission on the moon. When you see how much is possible, and when you see the miracles of all that we achieved and can be, and the miracles just of being itself, then you recognize that being here on this planet was a really well-contemplated decision by each of us. As souls, we know, and we get this spark of an altruistic intention and a purpose of what we could do here in the physical. And we can get back to that. It's a journey, but we can get back to that. So you're not going to recreate the miracle of who you are again anytime soon. After you die, you may take on another physical life, but you're never going to be you. And you is so important. You is so irreplaceable. You is so unique. There are different ways that the miracle of life reminds us of how infinitely special we are. Little reminders that when we really think about it, we can remember. Like, one little example is our fingerprints. You're telling me no one has this fingerprint? Not now, not ever, not in all of history. If my fingerprint is that unique and identifiable, isn't that an indication that that's like the tip of the iceberg and that everything else going on in here is pretty unique and original too? Why would I toss away that originality? Even if I can't get it together in some kind of way that feels meaningful or happy for me right now, I have hope I will, because I know that the universe supports me ultimately. Deep down, it resonates with me that there's a source of energy that's committed to my happiness and helping me to return to the state of happiness that I deserve. So don't use up this originality, even if you haven't found the spark that makes you feel alive and worthy and purposeful, because it might be tomorrow. One of my favorite experiences since this part of my career started was I was in New York City, and I was doing like a podcast. I think it was a video podcast, and they had a lot of scheduled guests. So we were in this big green room before we were each recorded, and they had food and they had drink, and it was just a really lovely environment. So I was doing my bit and talking to some people, and a man was in there, and he was telling me a story. I don't even remember how the story started, but he told me the story about how there was this guy. He was, he had a tough childhood, and then he became an adult. He had a career, he had a couple of kids, and all that stuff from childhood kind of haunted him and ate him up alive when he was older. So he started to use drugs, started to become, addicted to alcohol and other things. And little by little, The long story short is that he began to lose everything, his job, his wife, his kids. So here he was, this man, sitting on the corner of a street in Manhattan on a busy afternoon. And he was homeless, and his family had completely cut him off. He understood how he got there, but he was still in this moment. So he was sitting on that curb right then and there, not thinking about wanting to die, but instead he was thinking about how he would take his life before sunset. And with this, he's planning the method and figuring out the details. And wouldn't you know it, a car is making a right-hand turn. And so the driver, she's looking left, and she literally drives over his foot as she's turning. So, wow, that was a pretty bad day, and now his foot is crushed. So she jumps out of the car and she runs over, and she feels horrible. So she takes him in her car and she brings him to a hospital and she stays with him. She recognizes he doesn't have money, so she pays for his emergency care. And while he was recovering, she visited him every day, and she would just sit and sit and sit and sit. And through their conversation, it turned out that she had a similar history of a really difficult childhood and the ensuing alcoholism and mistreatment of herself and others as an adult. And she had turned this all around to become a person that was content with her life. But the parallels were unbelievable, right? So with this, I'm listening to the story and I'm feeling so excited, and I feel the magic coming along in this man that was homeless and the spark between them two. And with this, he looks over a few people on the other side, and I can't remember her name, I wish I could, but Robin, come here, I want you to meet somebody. This woman comes over, and he said, and this is the woman who ran over my foot. And we have 3 beautiful children, and he pulled out his wallet and showed me the pictures of his kids. And I tell you, that story stayed with me because it wasn't just a fable. It was a real man that I met in a circumstance that I just happened to be there. 30 other people in the room, and he's the one I got to talk to. It was a privilege to hear that story, but it reminded me it's never, ever, 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 ever too late for your moment to begin. So that's something I want to always make sure I remind people, that even though I do bring forth this information about how magnificent the energy realm is, and being a soul without the encumbrances of the human body, the human experience is purposeful. And specifically, your human experience is purposeful. Don't ever sell it short. Don't ever give up. There's always a moment, you never know what it's going to be, that can turn the things around that weren't agreeable to you. And you never know when your course will change, even if it started by a rough moment, like, oh, please don't let that happen, but someone running over your foot. It can happen. Things change. So stick with it. Stick with it. As I tell people all the time, you have all of eternity to not be a body. Who knows when you're going to choose another physical life after this one. Eternity is a really long time. So stick with this one. Make it the best. Make it something that you feel you're coming to life in, and that your signature, your unique and original fingerprint is showing and touching things and making an imprint on this world right now. It does matter. We also have this other idea sometimes that the numbers of years that we live is the most significant element of our journey here. And with my experiences of my consciousness being in the energy realm, I can tell you there's no badge for longevity when we get home. None. As a soul, we don't care if we were alive for 15 minutes, 15 years, or 1,500 years in that one body. Well, what does matter is the energy of the experience. It's what we learned, what we gave, what we took, how we grew, how we expanded, what we discovered. That's what matters. I know we can say till the cows come home. What does that mean when the cows come home? I don't even know that. But we know we can say until the cows come home that there's no such thing as time, that on a quantum level we accept it. But to really understand it means, it makes sense that when we return home, we don't really care how many years we lived, right? So on earth, we're so busy focusing on the preservation of life in the body that we forget to live while we're in the body, right? So you can experience the fullness of your original expression of who you are in this soul's journey, what your purpose is. You can experience that in 6 minutes. You can express that in 60 years, or you can live to 106 and have done none of it. Am I right? So don't see necessarily that the numbers of years we live is how we get the most boon to our vibrational level when we return home or we leave this journey. What matters more is what we put into that life that we experience here. How we did grow, how we did expand, how we did contribute. What we learned from when we did contribute and when we didn't. What we learned from when we did love and when we didn't. How we grew from when we received love and when we couldn't receive love. It's what we're doing with this life that has the greatest impact on us and has the greatest impact on others. Now, it doesn't mean that if you don't feel connected to your soul's purpose, that you're wasting your life, because there are times when we have to ruminate or tuck in. Sometimes we have to expand by sitting and thinking. But don't give yourself too much time off in the vigors of living your life that you forget that's what you're here to do, is to live. So pause once in a while, digest what you just experienced, maybe start to get curious as to why what you experienced had the effect that it did on you, but stay connected to living. I always look at people who I get to know intimately as my clients. I like to see the differences among them, but I also like to see the similarities among them. And I've experienced so many views and observations over the years. It really fascinates me. But one thing I find interesting is oftentimes if a person is born at one place in their lifetime and then they live there and live there and live there and they never travel and they never go away or buy a different house or move to a new location, versus someone who moves around a lot when they're children or they travel a lot when they're children. I notice that sometimes the person who has stayed put, they tend to make their possibilities of their life a little bit smaller because they didn't get to experience anything out of what was constant for them. But on the other hand, some people who moved around so many times when they were young, they have difficulty forming attachments because they're afraid of having to reestablish connections in the next place that it is that they go. So the point is, no matter what your journey is till this point, whether you feel the spark of wanting to do a lot or you feel the necessity to have closeness and connection to people because you were lacking it, you have your life to live. Live it by looking at the whole of your experiences and see what the things were that made you tick, that made you feel strong, that made you feel purposeful. There's a 3-day seminar I've given, and it's about really coming to understand who you are in a happy way and kind of aligning with it. One of the things that we do, which is a great exercise for you to do, is to chronologically review your childhood. I'd say like in segments, like whatever you can remember, 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, and so on. And write a list of what you enjoyed. What were your musical interests? What kind of sports did you like, or art? What kind of movies did you like, or television shows? Did you switch around in different genres of music, or did you really stick with one or one main band? Is there a favorite song you had, a favorite TV show, a favorite movie? If you go through this list and you record your own experiences of what made you happy or what made you feel alive or purposeful or meaningful or just drew you in, when you record those and you go back and you read that list and you add to that list and you look at that list and you add to that list, it oftentimes will show a bit of a map of what your soul's intention is. It shows you evidence into who you are by the essence of your being. When I first did this exercise, I remember seeing this theme pop up of, I loved any show that had anything to do with like a little bit of magic, like the person who could know who's at the door before the doorbell rings, or someone that could fix a broken plate just by wrinkling up her nose. And in some ways, when I realized what my career trajectory has brought me to, I realized that that's the kind of magical spark that I like to bring to people. So there I was, drawn as a child to be intrigued by the things that I would eventually and ultimately like to do and make a contribution to others. So this lifetime, it's not about the numbers of years you put into being in this body. It's about the life that you put into the numbers of years or days or moments or months that you are here. Clearly, the journey of the soul is a very big topic, so I'll be addressing more of your questions in future videos. Please do me a favor and put your questions below so I know what topics are of the most interest to you. And if you want to be informed about the next video that we upload, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I look forward to seeing you next time.